Perfect.
limit next year and then the following year.
All right, good morning. I will call to order the Queen Anne's County Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, March 13, 2025. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Does anyone have any public comments to start the meeting that are not germane to the conversation about the text amendment? Anybody signed up? Anybody online? Seeing, hearing none. We'll move forward with updates from our director.
Make sure this is close enough. Good morning, Amy Mordoff, Planning Director. I have a few legislative updates for you. The session is in full swing. On Monday, we'll experience crossover day of all of the bills. So just to update you on the bills I've been keeping you in the loop about, the solar sightings bill, which is Senate Bill 931, House Bill 1036. There were over 100 people, many from the Eastern Shore in Queen Anne's County, who attended the joint hearing last Friday, or Friday the 28th of February. There are a lot of aspects of the solar siting bill that are being opposed by Queen Anne's County, by MACO, and by the agricultural community. Following that hearing, there has been a concerted effort to move forward with amendments that would secure solar siting and protect some of our agricultural land. We are not sure where those amendments have fallen as yet, but there should be an updated draft by Monday for crossover. So next month I should have a complete picture to share with you, and you can also follow it on the legislative website. Additionally, I've been keeping you in the loop about the accessory dwelling unit legislation. That is Senate Bill 891, House Bill 1466. This is a bill that was meant to address the accessory dwelling unit task force recommendations that would allow accessory dwelling units by right in every jurisdiction. In Queen Anne's County, we already do allow accessory dwelling units by right, but in some jurisdictions that isn't the case. That task force, as I had mentioned before, issued recommendations. A few of them were legislative in nature, but many of them were not. Many of them were meant to produce guidance documents for local jurisdictions. When this bill was drafted, all of the recommendations were put forward as legislative changes. So I've been working with MACO to readjust the language of that bill to come more in line with the recommendations of the task force. And I'll let you know how that turns out. Additionally, the county put forward a piece of legislation, House Bill 1235, that was specific to establishing setbacks for cannabis uses. That bill had a hearing on the 25th of February, and there is no cross-file bill for that piece of legislation. So the viability and status of that bill is uncertain. And that's all I have.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Stephanie, you ready? All right, we'll open up a conversation around tax amendment, commissioner-sponsored County Ordinance 250 regarding cannabis regulations in Queen Anne's County.
Good morning, Stephanie Jones. So as you mentioned, this ordinance is specific to cannabis regulations. There has been kind of a history to the cannabis, not a long history, but recent. In July of 23, the state adopted Senate Bill 516, which made recreational cannabis legal in the state of Maryland. It also included language within that addressed unduly burdensome and not basically counties not being allowed to placing that on cannabis licensees. We, as a county, adopted our regulations for recreational cannabis in March of '24. Following that, there was another bill that was adopted that became effective in the summer of '24, that fully described what unduly burdensome meant, more in specific details than what the previous bill did. And what it says is that you can't be more restrictive on cannabis licensees or growers, processors, and dispensaries than what it would be a similar use that's already within your zoning. As well, it indicated that there were restrictions for setbacks for your dispensaries and that you could not be more restrictive than those themselves. So what this bill does, or what this ordinance does, it really gets us in line with the existing state regulations, kind of how they've morphed and how they've defined unduly burdensome. Also, it removes some of our standards from our previous, because what we did last year, if you remember, we took all of our medical cannabis requirements and just kind of included the recreational cannabis. We didn't really change anything. We just kind of added the recreational to that. So this kind of goes and amends those existing requirements as conditional uses. Most of the uses will now be permitted uses as opposed to a conditional use. They also have been included supplemental regulations to all those processors, growers, and dispensaries. I can go through them a little bit just to kind of give you an idea as to what those supplemental regulations are. Some of them are consistent across the board. Some of them, like, they have to provide their license from the state. They have to comply with sign standards that are set by the state. But then when it gets to growers, we treat them essentially as agriculture. The agricultural beverage and cannabis article indicates that you have to treat them as hemp. So in here, hemp as treated as agriculture. So what we have put for supplemental regulations is to treat it as what we do are mega farms, which are essentially your poultry farms. Those farms require landscaping and also setback standards. So we've applied that same kind of standard to the cannabis growers. But also, if you look into COMAR, into their hemp regulations, there are requirements for setbacks for hemp growers if it's being grown outdoors. So we've applied that as well. And then we have also required for cannabis growers and processors for them to submit a odor and abatement plan to the county. Basically what that does is indicating to the county how they're going to be addressing the odor nuisance. And then they have to, every year after, indicate to the county that they're in compliance with that plan. And that's specifically for growers and processors. And then we move on to processors. We talk about how they are basically similar to processing. Processing uses in the county are similar to light industrial uses, so anywhere that a light industrial is permitted, so with cannabis processing. The National Fire Protection Association requires that the processor cannot be located in a building that contains assembly, educational, daycare, healthcare, residential boarding care, residential and detection, and other similar uses. So we've applied that as well. It was something that would already be required, but we've put it in our code just to put it in there, so it's specific and included in our amendment. Moving on to dispensaries, there are no setback requirements for processors. I will indicate that. But then also for dispensaries, we have to treat them essentially as liquor stores. So they are treated as a high commercial use. Basically, the standards, the supplemental standards come specifically from the state as to the setbacks that we can apply. That includes your, what we had was 1,000 feet, now will be 500 feet from any uses such as schools, daycare centers, playgrounds, recreation center, library, public park, and place of worship. And also, it allows and gives the county authority to increase the distance between the dispensaries. Now we have a 2,500 feet requirement that's going to be increased to a half a mile, which the county has the authority to do so. So those are some of the supplemental standards that each of those growers, processors, and dispensaries would have to follow with the update of this ordinance. Amy mentioned the House bill, but if that was to pass, we would have to amend, but at this point in time, that doesn't seem to be the case, so basically, the intent of this is for us to come in compliance with state standards. So really, the recommendation here is because of those previous bills and the way the ABC article is now, that's just how we have to comply. And I suggest you send a favorable recommendation to the commissioners.
Any commissioner have a question of Mrs. Jones?
Yeah, if I could, when this is all put into place, would the right to farm understandings prevail here? And I'm thinking about somebody that right now buys a house next to a field that's being fertilized with chicken litter, you know, and basically the reaction is that's the way it is. Is the same going to apply to the cannabis odors and things like that?
So that has not been litigated as of today, but my understanding would be that if it's a farm practice and you continue with a farm practice, which this would be, then it would be protected by the right to farm. I imagine that there could be some litigation going forward to answer that question if you have a farming use that is growing cover crops or corn, and then you change it to something that's substantially different and has a different scent, but that hasn't been decided as of today.
Is it prudent to try and inject language in there that acknowledges the right to farm, or is that should be treated as a separate issue?
That should be a separate issue, and I imagine it is something, it is actually an issue that's being litigated right now, not relative to cannabis, but for changes in use in agricultural operations. So whatever that case may hold, it would have a holding and a bearing on Queen Anne's County right to farm and the Maryland State right to farm law.
Anyone else from commissioners? You're finished, Stephanie? Yep. Fantastic.
Also, I add one thing. On page 4 of your, bottom of page 3 and top of page 4, I did indicate the districts in which the uses would be added because of their similarities, but I didn't want to go through all of those because it's just a list of districts. If you'd like me to speak to them, I can, but just as so you're aware.
Regarding that update. All right, opening up to public comment. We have Mr. Patel, Michelle.
Yes, sir. Is it okay if she goes first?
Yeah, no problem. Are you Stacy?
Yes.
Floor is yours.
Okay, hi. I just want to say we have partnered with a former hemp processor.
I'm sorry, would you please introduce yourself, please?
Oh,
first?
yes, I'm sorry. I'm Stacy Brown-Lohman of Pure Bliss Haven. We're a social equity company, microprocessor. So, and my husband and I, we have 3 or 4 other businesses. We've been a government contractor for over 2 decades. So we know about regulations and running businesses. So we partnered with a company that was making hemp products, and we felt like that would get us up and running much easier. So they're already in a area in Queen Anne's County that the state says is okay to process in. We put our application in for zoning, and then we were told, well, you can do it for hemp, but you can't do it for cannabis. And it's the same plant. So we're not going to be changing anything. We're bringing on the expertise of people who already know the plant. All we're doing is just going to do it for cannabis also. So we're not even, and I know there was an explosion in the same industrial park. We're not even using butane for our processing. So we wouldn't even have that issue. But the people we're dealing with are already experienced. They already know. They've been there 4 years, no problems. So we're just changing from 0.3%, less than 0.3% THC to greater than 0.3% THC, but there's no difference in the business. And you can't even see what we're doing because we're a processor. So that's all. That's my comment. So I hope you'll support the change.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Patel, would you like to go? Yeah, 3 minutes plus or minus. And remember, please, Mr. Patel, introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Vishal Patel. We are licensed to grow cannabis through state standard license up to 300,000 square feet. I'm a small business guy, and we plan on leasing a farm which is owned by Mr. John Murphy. He's been a grower for last 30 plus years, and he's local to the county. We just need the bill passed so we can do our things and keep pushing on the business side. Want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, John Murphy. I own a small greenhouse up the road, about 2-acre facility. We grow annuals, we grow perennials for a competitor. I grow a better job than he does, he'll tell you that. And we also do e-commerce on the property. We're continuously changing our marketplace because the marketplace is continuously changing. Mr. Patel asked me to grow some cannabis up there. I have some experience. I've been growing hemp on the property since, when they legalized, I think in 2014, I think. 2 acres out in the fields. Also do a lot of research with the University of Maryland, both the Eastern Shore and Y. We do a lot of cannabis research on the property. We've had the USDA down as well. Said we had the best research in the country. We've grown about 300 different varieties of hemp. We haven't established. We've been grown. We don't have any issues with neighbors, no noise, no smell, complaints at all. We're very rural where we are. It's one of those locations. Mr. Patel brings a lot of experts, including Phil Goldberg, come up the other day, who experts on cannabis and say this is a great property according to, everything that's set in place. I think it was back in, 2014, I came to see Amy Murdoch with past Senator Joe Medashevsky, American Joe, we all know, to see about growing cannabis here in Queen Anne's County. We were unsure whether Queen Anne's County would really approve of it, so I had another property up in Kent County. And we applied for the license, we had set up for it, and I was number 22 on the list of, I think 100 and some odd people applied for it, and you had to be up to number 15, 1 through 15. So we did not receive that. So after that, once the hemp got going, I got going into hemp on the research. Now it's starting over again, and we'd like to go ahead and see. The place up in Kent County, being that I didn't get the license, we went and sold the property to a cannabis grower, the largest one in North America, and they purchased that property and growing cannabis up there. So now we're applying to see if we can do it here in Queen Anne's County, see if Queen Anne's County would be okay with this. Maybe give you a little bit more information on me. I got a great deal of experience in growing over the years. I started at 14, I'm 62 now. This might be my last hurrah in my career. I've done everything from the president of the MNLGA, which is Maryland Greenhouse Growers Association, which I've termed out. MAGIC, I'm a current chairman of MAGIC, which is Maryland Green Industry Council, where we review all the bills coming in, and then we make our comments and testify down in Annapolis. Many of the senators and delegates know me as Mr. Magic or the Pansy Man, because I grow a lot of pansies. So I'm very, very involved in that. We also, I teach around the world. I go to Kyrgyzstan, 3 tours now, teaching greenhouse management. A few other things involved in there, but it's just basically a gist of what I do. I'm a plant guy. I'm a plant nerd, and I would like to grow this for Mr. Patel. I'm very choosy about who I do business with. I like this guy. I think I can keep Mr. Patel reined in as to what Queen Anne's County would like. I have my own requirements for Mr. Patel as well, in order to, because I live there on the property, I'm next door. Next property, I want to make sure this works for my family and my neighbors that all count on me. So just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. That's all I have that have signed up. Is there anyone else who would like to, or Mr. Patel, would you like to finish?
I don't know if I have time or not, but.
We've got a
just
late
take
agenda.
Few
I'll
more
let- I'll
minutes.
let you- Sure.
Yeah, so with the property use and all that, on the regulation side, there are few points where not sure if it's too late to even talk about it, but something near the setback of 300 feet, given the property and the way the layout is, it's not really necessary. So I don't know who can answer or help us to, if there was a way to reduce that, depending on the use case and the location of the property. So that, and then the tree requirement for the tree buffer, the evergreen, like his property is surrounded by 500 feet of trees on all sides. So kind of putting another requirement won't really, make sense for that particular property. So I don't know if this is the
I think,
time.
and correct me if I'm wrong, when there are existing stands of trees, right, that is essentially counts as an existing buffer. So you would not have to plant a tree buffer along the edge of a woodland, for example. Am I presenting that properly? Yeah. And with other things like solar and other things that require buffers, if there's an existing buffer there, meaning a forested area of your property, that works as the buffer that's required, if you have one in place already.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, we just wanted to make sure because there was no detail on it. So what about the smell, the odor plan for the outdoor farm? Is that
I can't, yeah, Stephanie
Yeah,
knows.
as to why we've, you probably all are familiar with Centerville's issues that they have had. So that's why we've kind of included this. Looking at how the growing of cannabis has kind of morphed in the western states, they take the odor and the nuisance issues very serious. The Senate bill and House bill that were in place never addressed odor or nuisance by any means. They did not go to that detail. They addressed zoning, but not to that detail. So the county is trying to go one step forward. Obviously, the growers were previously a conditional use, so that would have been kind of addressed through a conditional use and a Board of Appeals review. So adding the odor the odor abatement is something that we see as important in order, for adjacent property owners. Also, these growers can be placed on a farm is what's required. A farm, can be 5 to 6 acres in the county. So that's something you can put it on that size property. So hopefully that having that plan will address that for the neighboring properties.
I just want to add on to that. The requirement is that they provide a plan that has industry best management practices. So a professional would have to provide the plan similar to a traffic study. And it would be site specific, and then the county would determine, whether those are best management practices and enforce meeting those best management practices. So I don't think it's going to completely eliminate odor, but it's an attempt to try to mitigate as much as we can.
For another analogy, Counselor, it's like we do with mining operations and decibel levels at the property line
Correct.
or at certain times of the day.
Yes.
It's analogous to that. The mitigation is some sort of a buffer or a screen.
Yep, and you have a plan that's prepared by a professional that looks at the site specific and says, based on the size of the operation and the size of the site, this is a best management practice that will mitigate, and then the county would review it and approve it or determine that it wasn't sufficient.
And that burden is on the applicant,
Yes.
or landowner, or dispensary owner, whatever.
For the growing license for outdoor, are there any set requirements, or the third-party company will kind of make the requirements, saying that, hey,
So the way it is drafted, it would be up to the applicant to find a professional mechanical engineer or certified industrial hygienist to provide a best practices plan. So, there are things like, I think there are foggers that exist, there are buffer lines that exist that provide setbacks. For indoor growers, there are air filtration systems. I think there's a whole host of things that can happen. You just have to have a professional provide this plan to show that the odors are being mitigated.
And on the annual basis, provide that to the county
Update.
to confirm, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you all. Very briefly, Mr. Murphy.
Yes, I'm sorry. On your tree alignment, there would probably be, in my own requirements, there's a section between my house I would like to put trees in, and just a recommendation with all the different legislation out there and people on both sides of the aisle, if maybe it would look good for Queen Anne's County if you were to make the buffers of native plants. In other words, use native, because native plants, invasive plants is a big subject now down in Annapolis, so it would be good for Queen Anne's County to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Ma'am, you raised your hand. Would you like 3 minutes on fame on the podium there?
Good morning. I'm Karen Kemp Dockstetter, and I represent the folks at DMP who currently are residents in the Log Canoe Circle processing area. Again, they've been there for 4 years. I started working with them about 2.5 years ago. My background, I'm a 6th-generation horticulturist from the Eastern Shore of Maryland. My family was in Somerset County, and I scurried up here to this end of the peninsula. I'm still teaching. I teach through Howard Community College, and I teach compliance. I am currently and still employed EPA federal contractor to write licenses for foreign entities outside of the United States, and also for FDA compliance. My whole reason for getting into this space, which is completely unnatural considering the goody two-shoes I was when I was in school, is because of the science of the plant and the possibilities of what the individual molecules can do for the human race. And this is pure and simple why I'm in it. We have a product line that DMP makes. It is pure, it is clean, and buddy, it's in compliance because that's my job, okay? And most of the people I teach, who we are in cooperation with the Maryland State MCA Council, the people that come out of there, they are in compliance because they know that's the biggest thing is when you're dealing with something you inhale, you eat, or comes in contact with people, it has to be healthy. DMP has always had that, even before I came on board. And they work to meet the qualities of full compliance, as it's not only stated, but we're a little bit over and above that, just because of the type of product it is. So I just want to assure you, this is our goal. We've never had an odor problem because we wouldn't have it, you know, not even coming up when you come really close to the building. And that's because of the due diligence of the people we've had do the contracting inside the building, as well as our continuous maintenance of the equipment, which is very key. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have here. Is there anyone online? No hearing. Any comments, questions from the commissioners? Hearing none. Thank you all for your public comment and coming out and supporting your position today. I will open it up to the board for further discussion or a motion. Is that all from staff?
Mr. Vice Chair, if I could say that be it resolved that the Planning Commission makes a favorable recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners regarding Commissioner-sponsored text amendment 25-01 to amend the existing licensed cannabis grower, processor, and dispensary standards to be more consistent with state law by amending zoning districts and standards and repealing conditional use standards in legislation adopted in County Ordinance Number 24-04, Cannabis Regulations. The Planning Commission provides the following findings. At this point, I'd like to include for the record the findings of the staff report contained herein, and that this text amendment is consistent with the zoning and subdivision regulations, consistent with annotated Code of Maryland, alcoholic beverages and cannabis and land use article, and consistent with the 2022 comprehensive plan.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
A second?
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed, no abstentions. Motion carries. Is there anything else on the agenda, public comment or staff or otherwise? Therein lies the end of our meeting. If I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you all. See you next month.